Hi, a story for your query. Welcome to yet another episode. We have with us Monica Agarwal, who is a school counselor, and we're going to discuss children who are differently abled in this episode. I would like to take you back to 1986 when I was a teacher in the primary section of a school which was very open and which was very progressive. I had a girl child in my class. She was intelligent and she was a bright spark. Anything that I was teaching in class, before the rest of the class could answer, her hand was up 1 kilometer. And she would have wanted to answer the question. All that was very fine. But when she wrote the answer, it was Greek and Latin. None of us could read what she had written. But surprisingly, when we called her, she could tell us what she had written. I don't know to date whether she was reading it or whether when we asked her the question, she could recall the answer. So we didn't know what was the problem. We didn't know what the matter was. But all of us, like-minded teachers, we decided to do one thing, that is to call her after the examination and take an oral test and assess her. What we didn't know at that time was that she had something called learning disability. And what we did at that time was probably the right thing to do. Those days in the B.Ed curriculum, learning disability did not find a place. But today, the B.Ed curriculum has got adequate coverage given to children with different capabilities, children who are differently abled, and that should help the teachers in coping with these different capabilities. So to throw more light on that, Monica, what is children, when we say children with different abilities, children who are differently abled, what exactly are we referring to?
Okay, so there are two things over here. When we talk about children who are differently abled, we may be talking about their physical needs, which may be different, and we may be talking about their academic needs. Okay, so to take on from your example, the example that you spoke about, learning difficulties or learning disabilities are something that that require children to have different uh, different help, different support in terms of their academics, in terms of the way they are being taught. So when we say differently abled or special education needs children, we are referring to them uh, having difficulty following the curriculum the way it is taught in school, and needing extra support in terms of either a special educator or in terms of somebody sitting with them and explaining to them in different ways using different methods what is going on in class. So these children essentially are able to understand what is going on, but they just need a little extra support or a few different methods of being taught, and they're as good as children who are able to understand what the teacher is teaching in the first go itself.
It's as simple as that.
Easier said than done. But yes, it is something like that, where if we identify the concerns correctly, there are support systems in place, and I think the hardest part over here would be convincing parents that their child needs support. That is something that we feel is the hardest part. Once a child starts getting the support they need, we have seen, very quick results for a lot of children.
Why is it difficult to convince the parents? If the child were to have typhoid or pneumonia or something, they would accept it, isn't it? Why
Yes.
is this difficult?
Yes. So uh, a lot of times education, being able to read and write, being first in their class is given a lot of weightage. Okay, rather than actually exploring the child's interests and abilities. So for example, this is how I try to explain to parents that, for example, me, okay, I was a decent student. I was an average student in class, but really bad with sports. Okay, used to come last in races, and eye hand coordination was zero. So I try to tell them that, if we see from my perspective, maybe I have a learning disability in sports. Okay, and but I'm okay with education. Similarly, we need to find out what is it that your child is good at, your child is able to do. What are your child's talents? Hone that while giving them support so that they are able to read and write. But because academics are considered everything, having a degree is considered everything, it becomes very difficult to convince parents that if the child is interested in, say, cooking, focusing on that while giving attention, while giving extra support in academics, so that the child is able to read and write and cope up with the academics till he is able to till he is able to get a degree in cooking, or focus on cooking, or get a class in cooking, is equally okay. Children will be able to make a career as a chef. There are so many opportunities out there, but it's still a long way to go for parents to accept that it's okay if my child is not coming first, it's okay if my child is not getting 90%, as long as he's pursuing something of his own interest.
So generally what happens, I think, is that the parents turn around and say, kar lega, wo lazy hai.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, this is
So this
something
is
that
it.
we hear a lot, that lazy है, थोड़ा सा विल पावर रखेगा तो हो जाएगा, ज़्यादा हेल्प की जरूरत नहीं है. So
Okay, which are the different kinds of abilities, that disabilities or shortcomings or limitations
yes,
that you find in this?
yeah. So there are three major types of learning disabilities that we identify. There is dyslexia, where the child has difficulty reading, identifying words. There is dysgraphia, where there is difficulty in writing, forming sentences, correct grammatical sentences. And there is dyscalculia, where there is difficulty in numbers, following steps in a mathematical equation. So anything related to math is a concern. So these are the major three difficulties, disabilities when it comes to learning disability. And there are others like dyspraxia, which is speech concern, language difficulties that comes under dyspraxia. Then there are non-verbal learning disabilities, where the child is not able to understand non-verbal cues of other people. So in a conversation, they find it very difficult to follow what's happening.
So that could be something that can be linked to social intelligence.
It could be, yes. So learning disability is a lot of times comorbid with other difficulties as well. For example, a lot of times learning disability and ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, they go hand in hand. A lot of times children who are inattentive may develop a learning disability because they have not been able to pay attention, and that has not been identified. So yeah, a lot of times these difficulties are comorbid.
So at what age do you recommend one should identify that the child has got learning disability?
So officially, an official diagnosis is given after the child is 8 years of age. So if you go to hospitals, they wait till the child is 8 years of age before giving an official diagnosis of a learning disability. But the signs are there right from childhood. So if there's a gap in understanding, if the child is not able to follow instructions, it is a warning sign. It is a red flag. A lot of times what happens is, if this is, so we come again to early intervention. If in pre-primary itself the teachers are able to identify that, okay, at a junior KG level, the child should be reading 3 letter 4 letter words, sight words, they should be able to recognize word families, but this particular child is not able to even recognize letters, then that's a warning sign. Okay, and if at that level itself, in at that age itself, if parents focus on the child, if parents ensure that the child is getting extra support, that the child is practicing, a lot of times this can be overcome. A lot of times children are able to pick up, and they don't go ahead to develop a learning disability. But if at that age this difficulty is not taken care of, if parents let it go, कर लेगा, lazy है, जैसे बड़ा होगा हो जाएगा. And I'm not saying नहीं होता. For some children it happens, but for most of the children that gap keeps widening. The more it widens, the more there are chances that the child will develop a learning disability. So early intervention is something that is really important when it comes to trying to prevent a learning disability.
You mean it can be prevented?
It can be prevented to a large extent, yes.
I see. I was always given to understand that one, it is a lifetime disability and that one has to learn to cope with it.
Yes, so that is another aspect of it. If, for example, let's say this child that we are talking about, if he has difficulty recognizing letters, but nothing is done for this child, the child goes in senior KG, again he still has difficulties. The child goes in first grade, it's still at a difficulty stage, but nothing is being done. Had it been taken care of at the junior, senior, first grade level, there would have been a possibility that he wouldn't have developed a learning disability. For some children, even with all the support, they do go ahead and develop a learning disability, could be for various reasons. And that is a lifetime, that is something that is a lifetime disability, and it has to be managed through support wherever the child is, till the time the child's education is going. So I have always seen two aspects of this. Children who with support also go ahead and develop a learning disability. Children with support who are able to cope up and are okay, they don't develop any difficulty. And children who are, these are very small minority, who as they grow up are able to pick up and are completely all right.
Is there any research that has been done where we can find out what is the chance of the child falling into which category?
As far as I know, I haven't really come across any research, but there have been some statistics that say that 1 in 5 children, if I'm not wrong, but I'm not very sure. I will have to look it up. I'm not very
I
sure.
mean, not that it makes so much of a difference. I was kind of curious.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There are some researchers that give a number, but I'm not very sure.
Mm-hmm. How long has it been since it's given the due importance in India?
Oh, not very long. I don't remember anything being done when I was in school. So say since the last 15, 20 years, 15, 20 years since it's come, into the mainstream. Not more than that. Before that, we didn't have all. I had never heard of learning disability when I was in school. Never. It was only during my masters that I had a classmate who used to get extra time, and we were all very curious as to why is she getting extra time. We are being given 3 hours, she's being given 4 hours. Why is that? And then later on, we came to know that all these procedures, she'd done all these procedures and got these concessions to sit and write for a longer time. So yeah.
I see. Since you mentioned ADHD also, so would it be appropriate to discuss ADHD also along with learning disability?
Maybe a little bit, because a lot of times they do go hand in hand. What I have seen in my career as a school counselor, what I have seen is a lot of times children who are diagnosed with learning disability also have a secondary diagnosis of ADHD. So parents do say that yes, they are inattentive, they are not able to pay attention, they are not able to focus for a long period of time, they are very disorganized, they keep losing their things, they're not able to keep their things in one place. If you see their books are very untidy, pages would be torn, it would be incomplete. So a lot of times these two go hand in hand. Could be that their inattention has led them to miss out on important basics, and that's why their learning disability is more severe. And it could be that because they have a learning disability, they're not able to pay attention to what's going on in class because they're not able to understand, and that is leading them to become more and more inattentive in other areas of their life as well. So ADHD is purely either being inattentive or being hyperactive, finding it difficult to sit in one place. And you see both these in children who have learning disabilities.
Are there any celebrities who are a part of, who are suffering from learning disability or ADHD?
Yeah, so I think Albert Einstein had a learning disability.
What did he now?
Yeah. Yeah. Albert Einstein, if I'm not wrong, it was Albert Einstein who had a learning disability. And
Okay.
in school, he was, said that you're up to no good, you're not going to, amount to anything, and a lot of criticism during his school life.
Uh-huh.
But he's Einstein, so we all know. So this actually points out to the fact a lot of times another hesitation that parents have is that you are calling my child dumb.
Uh-huh.
But we have to tell parents that we're not doing that. We're not calling your child dumb. We're not saying that your child is unintelligent. What we are saying is your child needs different methods of learning. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of times children who have learning disability, they are actually quite intelligent. They
Uh-huh.
are very intelligent and they have a very different perspective of looking at things. It's just that it is important to tap into those perspectives. It's important to tap into that talent. So,
I I was
yeah,
talking to you and I did some Googling here,
yeah,
and Einstein also had ADHD.
yeah. So, comorbid.
Yeah. And Tom Cruise had it.
Yeah, yes, yes. So, it's so important for parents to understand that learning disability is not the end of the world. It's
Mm.
not the end of a child's career, or and in this day and age there is so much support that is available to a child who has difficulties. For example, our school, we give extra time, we give a reader, we give a writer. If a child has difficulty, there is a different paper. In IGCSE, they have different font sizes if the child has difficulty with vision. So it's a bigger font. If the child has difficulty reading, it's the paper is made colorful. There are different colors in which the questions are written, so that the child is able to focus. There are so many. The child is able to use a calculator if he is diagnosed with dyscalculia. If he is diagnosed with dysgraphia, they get a writer. So there are so many concessions available for the child, but only concessions don't help. The child also has to have support in terms of a special educator, a remedial educator, who is using different methods to teach the child to read and write. That is very important because they have difficulties with spellings. So it's important to teach them how to spell a word. They have difficulty with sentence formation. A special educator uses so many different ways to teach the child how to form sentences. And all these are important to help the child improve in his reading and writing. Just the concessions are only the concessions, I would say, are like a crutch. They just help. Yes, they help the child, but then they also make the child dependent, and that is not right. It is important that the child also get special educator support, so that he's also learning how to read and write and spell things correctly and understand it properly.
You mentioned different strategies for teaching,
Hmm.
but I would like to know, how does the teacher control the child, ADHD child, who is jumping on the seat, who is moving around the whole class, disturbing the teaching? How
Yes.
does the teacher control this child?
Yes. So over here, a psychiatrist comes into the picture.
Mhm.
If the ADHD, if the hyperactivity is so much that the child is not able to sit down for even 5 minutes, then we suggest medication. Now, I understand that a lot of parents are averse to medication also, but these medications do help children sit down and focus. And these are not medications that go on for a lifetime. It's only till the child is able to manage things on their own. So, medication is something that helps the child settle. If the child has a lot of energy, then giving the child frequent breaks is important. That helps. So, every 10 minutes, depending on how much the child is able to sit, say every 10 minutes, the child gets a 2-minute break where he moves around, maybe runs around, and then comes back and sits in the class. Now, this is something that I understand may be a little, difficult in a classroom situation because the teacher is also in a flow to while she's teaching. So shadow teachers are something that we encourage. A shadow teacher sits with the child, explains what is going on. If the child is feeling very restless, gives the child a break, gets him back. If he has missed something, explains that to the child. So psychiatrist, one, for medication if the hyperactivity is so much that the child is not able to sit, and a shadow teacher to support him in class. These two things really help.
So, in other words, the children who were in school about 20 years ago, who didn't get any of these benefits, would have dropped out of school system totally, isn't it?
Probably or would have had a really miserable time.
Uh, that's true.
Yeah,
That's true. Everybody doesn't become an Einstein easily.
yeah, yeah.
Now, what else do you recommend that a teacher does? Does the teacher need to know a little bit about identification of these children? What are the signs to look for? How to deal with this? Some basic preliminary training do you think is required for every teacher at the
Yes.
pre-primary and the primary level, particularly?
Yes, absolutely. The earlier we identify, the better. So teachers need to understand. Teachers need to keep a check on the response, how children are responding, whether they are able to read properly, write properly, age appropriately. If not, why is it? Is it an issue with their reading and writing and their understanding, or is it something to do with their vision or their hearing? Is that an issue? So teachers need to first keep a watch on whether there is any particular child who is inattentive. If they find a child constantly looking out of the window or being more interested in what the partner is doing as compared to what his own work is, that is a red flag. If the child is not able to sit in one place at all, every 5 minutes he's getting up, moving about, even after instructions are given to sit down, that is a red flag. If the child is not able to follow instructions at all, simple instructions like take out your notebook is a struggle for the child, that's a red flag. If the child is very messy and disorganized, all his books are lying everywhere and he's not able to organize himself at all, those are red flags. Reading and writing, of course. I think most teachers do pick up on concerns in reading and writing because they're constantly testing them. There are formatives, there are summatives. So these are all red flags for teachers. And in terms of, so first of all is identification. These red flags, these signs are something that teachers need to look at and identify. Once they have done this identification, if there is a school counselor, now I know ICSE, CBSE, IGCSE schools have counselors compulsorily, but a lot of state board schools don't have counselors. So, in case there's a counselor in school, the counselor needs to be involved so that the counselor can give some kind of suggestions for the teachers as well as the parents. Now, some suggestions for the teachers would include special attention to these particular children, so ensuring that their notebooks are being checked constantly so that the teachers are aware whether these children are able to understand or not. A buddy system works really well. So having a buddy sit with the child to keep a watch, keep check whether the child has completed their work or not. If not, the buddy who has written it can show the notebook to this child. So a buddy system works really well. Teachers can, give movement breaks to the children. So, this benefits all children. Movement breaks benefit all the children. So, ensuring that the children are moving a little bit, and especially for these children who have difficulties, these movement breaks help a lot because they take their mind off. And once the movement is done, they're back to, focusing in class. Also, if a child is, distracted, just lightly tapping the child on their shoulder or their head or calling their name to bring them back to class, that also helps. So these are a few things that they can keep in mind. These are a few things that they can do in class to help the child be more adjusted in the classroom.
That's a lot of different strategies that we discussed. But there is one thing that didn't come up in our conversation. It is the mirror images. I've heard so much about mirror images in the school. Are learning dyslexic children also show mirror images?
Yes. So what happens with dyslexia is that children have difficulty reading from left to right, and that's why these mirror images happen because they don't understand the concept of reading from left to right. So B becomes D, on becomes no, 25 becomes 52. So all these concerns come up because of this particular difficulty that children face of reading from left to right. That's what mirror imaging is basically.
All right. So that's been a lot of food for thought. I think that should
Yes.
bring us to the end of this episode. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Monica, for throwing light on all this. I do hope our parents who are listening in will be able to take the benefit of this and help their children. And early intervention, as Monica keeps advising every time, will be, will be practiced. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next week.